Hello my dear friends, today we have a very interesting moment with releasing of Trichogramma parasitoids. I have received some samples for the study and with this extras material, so now I can release some Trichogramma just for purpose to the nature. Because Trichogramma is released in this stage adult, and Trichogramma, this is tiny egg parasitoids, so it's quite really invisible, very small one. You can recognize they are very tiny. Trichogramma is parasitoid of 0.5 millimeter size, very small size. These tiny points which are crawling around, these are Trichogrammatidae, Trichogramma egg parasitoids of eggs of butterflies, moths, beetles, some other insects. And I have extra material, so I have made already some samples, and they can be transported in these packages and then released in agricultural fields, just directly to agricultural fields. You can see some small points. These are parasitoids, and some small points, these are shells of eggs. Because Trichogramma is egg parasitoid and developing inside eggs. So you see damaged Trichogramma, damaged parasitoids, and also shells after their hatching. They're very tiny. I cannot make them quite big because size of half of millimeter is quite tiny. Only I can show you them under the microscope. But I decided to release them because I got quite many of them, about 3-4 grams. And each gram contains over 30 up to 40,000 of these tiny creatures. So I got maybe 200,000 different specimens of these tiny egg parasitoids. 200 specimens is enough for investigation, so that's why I decided to release the rest in the nature. I cannot release it in laboratory because they will spread around, so that's why I release them somewhere in the park, in open area. This is the same process as commercially produced Trichogramma is released to the field. The same, like a small pieces of dust with some content. It's easy to release in the nature, but better to release it in early morning or late night to prevent drying, to prevent destruction of material, because now it's very hot, temperature over 30 Celsius degree, 35 maybe Celsius degree on sunshine, even over 40 Celsius degree. So about 100 Fahrenheit should be the temperature. That's why tiny parasitoids are releasing only morning time and evening time. These are tiny egg parasitoids. Each small dots are crawling around with size about half of millimeter, but has body, has head, legs, wings, abdomen, thorax, and genitalia. So they're fully like a honeybee, but very reduced size. From the honeybee size into this tiny creature, half of millimeter size. Tiny, small egg parasitoids of genus Trichogramma. So I'm sitting in the park and releasing them just to the purpose to release small creatures outside of laboratory. And it's far away from laboratory, so I cannot mix material, so it's quite important. I received this live material just for investigation, for the study of species name, to identify what is the species is bred in the laboratory. So this is sample for identification purpose. I need to identify these tiny creatures. They are very tiny, half a millimeter, so I need to use microscope. I need to make microscopic slides and investigate them on microscopic slides under the magnification 400 times up to 1000 times to study genitalia of males of these tiny creatures, small egg parasitoids. But in nature you can collect these creatures as well. They are not only bred in laboratory, they are not laboratory breeding insects like silk moth. They are occurring in the nature, so we are releasing them to the nature, not to make balance, but to reduce the population of harmful pests, harmful corn moths, especially on mice, on corn in Ukraine. It's well-developed technology, so some commercial laboratories are breeding these tiny parasitoids for commercial purposes to release them in agricultural fields of mice. It's very important to take control of it. What means control? Control, it means to control the species name of bred material. So you are breeding some insects, but to prevent their mixture, to prevent mixture of different species, it's important to control progeny, to control what is the species is breeding in the laboratory. So I am doing this identification, which is very important. Identification of species name, because some species are successful. We are successful in the field, but we are difficult for identification, and it's also very easily bred in the laboratory. But other species are easily bred in the laboratory, but not successful in the field, or much less successful in the field because of trophical adaptation of parasitoids to specific hosts. One species is adapted to one species of host or group of hosts, adapted to temperature, to humidity, and especially to trophical relations with host insects, which can be corn moth, which can be bollworms, Noctuidae family, or other tiny moths or butterflies as well. So you see how small of them, very, very tiny, just half of millimeter, but very heavy to go out. It's difficult to prevent their escape. They are flying, maybe not very easily. They are flying with wind, but they are jumping very well. They use their wings for flying, and they are very small. Мы наблюдаем с вами паразитических перепончатокрылых насекомых Trichogramma, которые я выпускаю в природу образца, присланного на исследование для определения видового состава Trichogramma. Имеется здесь экстра материал, которого слишком много. Был отобран материал для исследования в пробирке. Присланный материал в таком белом пакетике бумажном. Хорош тем, что бумагу паразитоиды не прогрызают, но если открываешь, то они вылетают. Поэтому мы их выпускаем в природу. Это паразитические перепончатокрылые насекомые рода Trichogramma. Мелкие наездники размера всего лишь полмиллиметра. Однако имеющие такое же строение тела, как и другие перепончатокрылые, такие как пчелы, осы, шмели, пилильщики, муравьи, имеющие то же самое голову, грудь, брюшко, крылья, ножки, анатомическое строение, как у других перепончатокрылых насекомых. Но очень маленькие насекомые, маленькие передвигающиеся точки размером всего лишь полмиллиметра величиной. Проба очень была достаточно большой, около 3 грамм. Для исследования это достаточно. В каждом грамме содержится большое количество таких насекомых. Практически целый улей. В улей находится до 30 или 60 тысяч пчел. Вот в одном грамме трихограммы, а именно производимой в биолаборатории для использования в сельскохозяйственных полях, содержится 10 тысяч, 20, 30 тысяч экземпляров трихограммы. Трихограмма разводится на яйцах ситотроги, зерновой моли. Зерновая моль очень маленькая, меньше 10 мм в размахе крыльев, питается зерном, пшеницей, ячменем, откладывает яйца, и эти яйца заражаются этим маленьким перепончатокрылым насекомым, трихограммой. Заражаются, что означает, самка откладывает яйцо внутрь яйца хозяина, а именно бабочки. И внутри развивается новое здание, новое существо, паразитоид, яйцевой паразитоид трихограммы. После разведения такие яйца ситотроги, зараженные трихограммой, собирают в специальные пакетики, имеются коммерческие фирмы, которые их продают с целью применения против вредных видов чешуекрылых, против томатной совки, против кукурузного мотылька, против различных листоверток в садах и огородах. Особенно активно сейчас применяется трихограмма против кукурузного мотылька. This is a tiny small parasitic wasps. These are tiny parasitoids. I was talking in the beginning, so I need to repeat it for new viewers, for newcomers. These are tiny egg parasitoids of genus Trichogramma. Egg parasitoids of butterflies, egg parasitoids of moths. They are tiny, the same size, nearly bigger than some mites. They are not harmful for humans, not harmful for pets, animals. They especially, exclusively, precisely, egg parasitoids of different butterflies, moths and beetles. They are parasitizing inside eggs of other insects. That's why they are very small, size half of millimeter. They have same structures, honeybee body. Honeybees, reduced up to the size 0.5 millimeter, very small one. I received this sample for the study, to study the species name, but I have extra material, so I'm releasing these tiny insects to the nature, because there are so many of them. Here are some parasitoids and some small dark dots. These are eggs of butterflies, eggs of moths, which were used for breeding these tiny insects. They are especially used for breeding. They are not domesticated like silk moths. They are commercially bred. They are used in many countries. Over 30 countries are using this biological control agent, so it's called Trichogramma, for control of pests, dangerous pests of different agricultural and forestry crops. So these are tiny insects, very tiny insects, which are living in the nature, so I'm releasing them back to the nature like swarm of wasps because they are parasitic wasps. They are considered to be not bees. They are parasitic Hymenoptera. They are parasitoids. They are very small. I cannot show their size immediately now because we are on live stream. In their size half a millimeter, I only can show them under the microscope later in recorded mode. I can try to increase magnification, but they are still very small. You see so many of them crawling around. Each of them half of millimeter size. These are tiny egg parasitoids. Maybe 10,000 are crawling around like small swarm of honeybees, small swarm of wasps. They are jumping, they are flying, they are releasing here around, and they can find their hosts. You can find their hosts, small butterflies, small moths, different butterflies by the way. But it's difficult to find because now it's extremely hot in the Ukraine. I'm in Kyiv, so today is extremely hot, 36 Celsius degree. Very hot for nature, very hot for plants, and of course it's hot for insects. I'm showing them in the shadow, so in the shadow it's much better. For sure we are communicating, because here there are some males and some females. I need to use males for taxonomical study, and they are tiny, they are just jumping on my fingers like tiny mites, but they are not biting. They are not biting, they are not stinging, they are very small. So I'm releasing them into the nature for purpose just of nature conservation. But they are used for commercial purpose to control agricultural pests. That's why they are considered to be beneficial insects. Beneficial CHALCID WASPS, the genus Trichogramma, family Trichogrammatidae, superfamily CHALCID WASPS, Chalcidoidea, order Hymenoptera. So that's why they are considered to be useful for humans, is used for commercial purpose against agricultural pests. Despite it, they're very small, so not easily visible, because they're like small tiny dots jumping and crawling around. Only it needs to use microscope for their study, but you can recognize how many of them all together. That's why I'm doing this live stream, to show how many tiny beneficial wasps, beneficial insects can be living nearby of us. If somebody is interested in identification of Trichogramma, welcome to join us. You can write in comments which country are you coming from, what is your home country. Можете написать, из какой страны или из какого города вы нас смотрите. Мы показываем трихограмму, паразитическое перепончатокрылое насекомое, применяемое для контроля численности вредных чешуекрылых против вредных бабочек, которые живут на кукурузе, на томатах, на плодовых культурах, в садах и огородах, на полях кукурузы, на полях капусты, на овощных культурах. These are tiny egg parasitoids, tiny small parasitic wasps. Parasitic wasps which have size 0.5 millimeters. That's why so many of them. And they are very tiny. They are belonging to the genus Trichogramma, and I need to identify the species name of these tiny parasitoids. They are parasitizing eggs of beetles, butterflies and moths. In America we do the same. We have distribution in all continents. There are special species which are living in USA, in America, in South America, in North America. Some species live in Africa, in Europe, in Asia, in Australia. And I am interested in the taxonomical study of these species. That's why I'm doing taxonomical investigation of these tiny small parasitoids, which are very tiny. You can recognize like small dots, half of millimeter, because they are parasitizing eggs of insects. Not only butterflies, not only moths, not only beetles, but many other insects of 9 orders can be parasitized even. Sorry about that. We're again online, so we're watching a small parasite for this small sample with insects which have been sent to me for the study, and I'm releasing them from this package with eggs of small moths which were infested, which were parasitized by tiny parasitic wasps of the genus Trichogramma. And you can recognize they are so small, they are so tiny, because they have size. That's why I'm showing them as a big surprise, because they are tiny. And I can show them in so huge amount. Same process of releasing is used for commercial release of Trichogramma in the nature. Just packages are open, and all Trichogramma is on leaves of corns, cabbages, on leaves of garden, because Trichogramma is biological control of harmful pests such as harmful butterflies, harmful moths and beetles. And especially they are used in Ukraine against corn moth, Luxostege stichticalis, Pyralidae family. Trichogramma is used in different countries in huge amounts. It's used for biological control of agricultural pests in such countries as China, India, Brazil, in the United States, it's bred in Netherlands, in Bulgaria, in France, in Ukraine, in many other countries. So if you are interested in identification of Trichogramma, I'm doing identification of species name. If you are interested in some collaboration, you can take some samples, you can send me some samples for identification and for some cooperative study of this Trichogramma. Only what do you need to write? You need to write precise label, place of collecting, name, post plant. Support Ukraine, and Ukraine will win. Thank you. Best greetings from Kyiv, capital of Ukraine. Stand with Ukraine, support Ukraine, help Ukraine, and Ukraine will win. Best greetings from Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine. Write your comments under this video. Good luck.